What has been the biggest challenge that you've had teaching abroad?
Not knowing their language.
Exactly, yeah. I was going to say...
So being completely immersed and not being able to explain, having to explain with pictures and hand movements and gestures.
I don't know if I've really had that much of a challenge. The most is when you're trying to get the kids to quiet down, because I work in a public school here, and there's 40 kids sometimes, and it's sometimes hard to get them to quiet down, but they usually are very attentive and they listen, especially with public school, and their grades counting, their behavior's a lot better.
I think the biggest difficulty will be language. Is always communication, and I would say to you, as soon as you arrive, take up the language. Commit to at least 1 year, at least an hour a day, or 3 classes a week, or 2 hours every afternoon. Commit for 1 year, and then after 1 year, if you don't like it, then give it up. But at least by then you'll have sussed out the grammar, you'll know most of the basic vocab, and then if you want a relationship, you're okay. Yeah. If you want to, if you get lost, you need to get yourself out of a situation, you're okay. If you're in hospital and you can't explain, you'll be okay. A year's intense study is worth being here 7 years and just trying to pick up a few words every day. The pain is short term. In fact, you're probably going to enjoy it too. Yeah. Language, anything else? The roads here are pretty bad, I've got to be honest. They have their own rules, not like Taipei, it's a little more red light means stop. Here, red light means you can stop if you want to stop, but it's up to you,
Teaching here, discrimination, I guess, because I don't look white enough. The first time I applied for jobs here, obviously I was turned away because they didn't think I could speak English. But with this school that I'm working for now, they gave me a demo class, they gave me a chance. I started part-time teaching and sort of slowly became a full-time teacher, and now I'm the head teacher.
Probably the culture with the Japanese, just cultural differences, just kind of communication problems. Right. I guess just language, just kind of stuff.
The biggest challenge with my job is that I am not really that Christian, but they are very Christian, so they have their different ways of doing things, discipline and teaching styles. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, is because I'm at a Christian school and not at a different public school like everyone else.
I guess having higher expectations in regards to it being a super developed country, a little bit of an in-between from development stages.
Not hearing an honest opinion from your students. If you're teaching for a school, the students would act like they know and they'll nod their heads that they understand, but then 5 or 10 minutes later, the manager would ask them, so did you understand what they were saying? They'd be like, oh, I really didn't understand this part, but and then we end up getting blamed for that.
But all along while you're teaching them, they're acting like they know.
They know, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, me? What's the most difficult challenge? Probably the most difficult challenge would be dealing with the culture, that the hardest parts of the culture that you're just not used to. For example, in Japanese they use the word tatemae, and I've been here so long that I don't even know what the English word would be. White lies. They'll tell you something, they'll tell you everything they can to make you feel like this is the way they really feel, but in the back of their mind they do not feel that way, and that is just not the way they want it to be. It's rather, it's rather, what's the word I'm looking for? It's rather annoying, coming from a place that is extremely straight, extremely to the point. It feels like you must always go around your butthole to get to your, you finish that?
No, I was going to say something different. I think that another thing that makes it a challenge is the manners that we have back home and what they're used to out here. Yeah. And like you'll have children try to run up behind you and put their hands up your ass, and
Ma, you got a cigarette? I got to smoke a
kids
cigarette on
coughing and sneezing in your face, not covering their mouths, and trying to explain to them why you need to do this, and they're just not used to it. And you know, when you sneeze, I'm used to hearing "bless you" or "God bless you," and here you get like a giggle or you know, little things that could be a little challenging, and you can't explain manners to somebody if they weren't raised that way.
Right. You can't explain our culture to someone. It's just not who they are, you know. And that's what you got to understand. It's not who they are. That's the biggest challenge, man. Is trying to acclimatize to someone who is just totally not who you are.
Well, before when I used to teach in Spain, I knew the language of the students that they were speaking. I could explain stuff in Spanish or whatever. But in Japan, it's the same, like Bryce just said, not knowing the language, not having a clue of what they're saying is a massive challenge. And having to like use gestures and try to get your message through only in the target language was quite a challenge.
The biggest challenge has been getting the children to stay focused and motivated and looking forward to the future, not just at the present.
Right.
Being Korean American.
I'm sorry?
Being Korean American. Everybody expects me to speak Korean, but at least people in Busan are friendlier than in Seoul.
Yeah.
I got a lot of.
Right.
Students who don't believe you that you're actually aware of how to use your own language. They like to tell you you're wrong.
Do you teach adults?
I used to teach adults, now I teach high school kids, but teaching adults was much more challenging.
Yeah.
In that whole, I lived in America in the 1970s and I know American English. It's like, well, my dad uses that English, but if you go to a meeting, no one's going to take you seriously now.
Right.
Dad's a bit too old for meetings. You talk to younger people, they have no idea what you're talking about. So. That was the most difficult, most challenging. Not bad though, just challenging.
Right.
Try to keep your cool.
Patience. Patience for the kids, patience for the culture, patience for the people. Yeah, it's a lot to deal with sometimes, and my patience coming over here was quite thin, so it's grown a lot since I've been here.
Say learning the Chinese language and getting to understand the culture and just cultural differences, but I think once you get over that, it's pretty easy.
Okay. What about your school? Do you have any challenges with your school?
Again, I think cultural differences between the management and the foreign teachers. Sometimes they have maybe different expectations, and we also have certain expectations, and so sometimes there's a bit of tension, but I think we're pretty fortunate. Our boss lived in Canada for a while, so there's a lot of give there.
First little while, they continued to load the work on us, but really improved over the next couple months.
Yeah.
They started to realize, this is a newer school, they started to realize what we wanted, and we started to realize what they expected from us. I think you have to meet each other's expectations.
The biggest challenge, of course, is missing Western food, missing my native language. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time here. I really have.
I have actually had some good challenges here in Korea. Teacher problems, communication problems like that.
When I first got here, it was definitely the language and adjusting. But maybe my school, they've kind of been a little shady. But I love it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Shady how? Like what?
They loaded us up on extra work, and they took away some of our vacation days, which wasn't in the contract, and they made me move apartments, gave me 5 days notice, and they took a bonus away from us, gave the Korean teachers, not to us, the foreigners. Just, they didn't really care about us at all.
Learning not to cross cultural boundaries, not disrespecting them unintentionally. Obviously getting away from home has been a big step for me. But, you know, once you get over those couple humps, it's not so bad.
The food, I don't like the food at all. So it gets kind of expensive because I buy food, American food.
Definitely the language. For me, the heat is really hard. to deal with and the bugs. It's interesting because I taught at university for 2 years before I came here, freshman composition at a university, and it's a different kind of frustration altogether. It's more language than it is motivation, because they are motivated, but there's a language barrier that makes it difficult.
It's just working with kids. Like, kids are the same anywhere. They have a lot of energy. You have to be able to control them, and the language barrier would be the most difficult aspect of trying to maintain order in a classroom. I teach at a Hagwon, so it's like my materials are often not enough to fill a whole class, fill a whole class with. So I often do struggle with coming up with creative things to keep the class learning and entertained.
I'd say well, I can give you a hallmark reason, and I can give you a genuine reason. Hallmark reason is, obviously as a teacher you get attached to a lot of the people that you meet, and I guess that's the bane of being a teacher, that you always stay and people always go. But not only that, but in the sense of being in a foreign country, a lot of the expats that end up coming tend to move on with their life, and being here for 4 years, I've seen a lot of guys come and go.
Yeah.
The language, definitely. Definitely the language. I really hate not being able to talk to people, and I feel rude not knowing their language.
Just in the culture, I guess.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I think living abroad is not difficult. As long as you just keep an open mind. I think if you have somewhat of a liberal sentiment towards people of different cultures and backgrounds, then it's not a problem. And if you're not so open-minded, then yeah, it can be very difficult for people. But for me, it came to me quite naturally. So I love it here. I have no complaints whatsoever. Except no Mexican food. There's no Mexican food.
No Mexican food, right? That's a fight.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Coming from Southern California. But other than that, I have no complaints.
Right.
I think just being away from home with family and getting to know people here, Koreans and foreigners. Like where I teach is really small, so I'm the only foreigner there. So it's quite hard to meet people when you're working from kind of afternoon. Sometimes I get home at like 10 o'clock or something, 11 o'clock.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest challenge.
Learning how to get around initially was very difficult. Most Koreans I knew did not take public transportation, so I had to figure that one out on my own and learn Korean in order to do it. So it's a lot easier than it sounds, I guess. But it was the hardest challenge at first. For me, I don't like spicy food very much, so finding good comfort foods and learning how to make what I want to eat have been challenging, or just learning how to find foods that I can find delicious and not challenging to eat.
Really, it's not all that challenging. Just getting off the plane, getting the gumption to leave your country, to leave your comforts. I think that's a pretty big challenge. Also dealing with hagwons and that uncertainty, and I don't know.
Have you had any problems like with your hagwons?
No, my hagwon sold its business, so it changed hands, which was kind of weird. So I don't know, when a business changes hands, there's always different rules and whatnot. But I don't know, it's always kind of hard to adapt to.